Hello, everyone. My name's Bill Van Gorder. I'm the past chair and senior spokesman for CARP Nova Scotia, and we are pleased to host this countrywide webinar today with Heather MacAulay. Heather has worked as a physiotherapist since 2019, and after she graduated from McMaster University in Ontario, she currently works in Dartmouth with Spring Physiotherapy, and she's passionate about preventing injuries before they happen, especially when it comes to doing an activity that she, as all of us, I think, love so much, and that's gardening. And if you, like me, are a gardener, you're looking at the warm weather, at least we finally got in parts of Nova Scotia today, and saying we may be able to get out later this week and actually do something in the garden. And so it's really important. The timing of Heather's presentation today is excellent for that. CARP does enough for you who are new people to CARP, and we have a number of people who haven't attended one of our webinars before. CARP does many webinars a year. CARP, of course, standing for the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, and this is the Nova Scotia chapter broadcasting across the country today. We have 2 more physiotherapy webinars that will be happening later this year. We also do webinars on frauds and scams, on investments, on health issues, many different health issues, and on the environment. And so if you're interested, sign up through Eventbrite to get the regular notices, or if you go to the CARP website, it's easy to find. It's just carpnovascotia.ca, and that's CARP Nova Scotia all spelled out. You can see our webinars promoted there, or on social media. We're very active on Facebook. In fact, most of our members get their information from Facebook when it comes to knowing when the webinars are. So that's enough for me. We're ready to get started, and I will call on Heather and ask you, Heather, welcome, and please begin.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was a wonderful introduction because, as Bill had mentioned, around this time of year, I can't tell you how many times I hear, I can't wait to get out gardening, and then about a month later, I hear how many injuries come to me from gardening. So this is a perfect time, as Bill had mentioned. It just got nice out. I don't know about other parts of Canada, but I think this was the perfect time to do it because I think the itch is there for everybody. And I'm really excited to get into the garden, but I also, if I can possibly help anyone who can prevent injuries before they happen, that is my goal, and that is my my hope for this webinar. So I have a lot of information. I am somebody who likes to talk more than I should, so I'm going to try my very best to. Sorry, I muted myself somehow. There, am I back? Can we hear me?
You're back. You're back. Yes.
Sounds good. Okay, perfect. If that ever happens, just let me know. If anybody can't hear me or if my internet goes out, you let me know. But
or I can unmute you because I have the power here to do that.
Okay, sounds good. I appreciate somebody else taking control of that technology. But yes, I talk a lot, so I'm going to try my very best to try to get this information in. I might try to talk a lot just to be able to kind of capture all of that information and respect everyone's time. But I will start, and feel free to kind of ask questions.
One of the things, Heather, that I should have mentioned, and I forgot to look at the other side of my notes, and that is, if you have questions, Heather will answer questions at the end of the presentation. Please put them in the chat, and I will monitor them there, and then we'll ask Heather your questions at the end of the presentation. Yeah.
Sounds good. So yes, if we pop up that presentation there, we can get started.
I will pop it up for you right now.
Appreciate it. Wonderful. But yes, just to start kind of chatting as we pop that up there, basically what we want to talk about is, and sorry, you can go right to the other side there, but yes, my name is Heather MacAulay. I'm out of Spring Physiotherapy in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but yes, you can hop right to the next slide. And so what we want to get out of today is to improve our awareness so that at least we're aware when we're hopefully not injured of things that might cause injury in the future once we get back to gardening. and just ways to reduce the potential cause of injuries before they happen. And if unfortunately something happens, what to do about it. We can hop right to the next slide. So there are common injuries with gardening that we'll chat about. We want to talk about warm up and cool down, which I know everybody talks a lot about, but it is important, and I can kind of chat about why that would be relevant and important for everything, including gardening. Ways that we can help reduce stress on the body because of the positions and the equipment that are required in gardening, and what happens if we do get injured, what to do about it. And next slide there.
Whoops.
So a little bit about me, Bill. I'll keep chatting about myself. As Bill had mentioned, I graduated from McMaster.
Got her on the wrong.
Hi. Sorry, what was that?
Somebody is not muted. Please mute yourselves, everybody. So you should be fine.
Perfect. Yeah, so I graduated from McMaster University from physio school. I love gardening. I have a backyard that desperately needs me this time of year, so I'm excited to get back into it. I enjoy going to the gym, and when I'm not at work, I'm usually out with my dog, enjoying the nice weather and getting her well exercised because she needs it. So that's a little bit about me. So in terms of the gardening risks. So not doing warm up and cool down is a big factor, which I know we've heard at length, but I'm going to talk about it again. A change in activity level for any sort of injury, a big risk factor tends to be a sudden change, doing too much too soon, especially when we love it. So gardening is something we can't wait to get back to. We're so excited when we're able to return to that activity. But it does put us at an increased risk of injury because it's all of a sudden a change in activity level, and usually a drastic change because we love it. Sustained positioning, so being in a position for a long period of time, does put us at risk of injury. And when we have a million weeds in the garden, that ends up being longer than we'd like to be in those certain positions to reduce our chance of injury. Technique, we will talk about technique because that is of course important, and tools we can use to reduce the strain. So we can flip to the next one. So what to do for warm up. Let's chat about why warm up is important. But a big component is getting blood flow into the muscles and the areas of the body that we want to be able to use in order to garden properly, and also improve the flexibility. So you can appreciate, if you can imagine being kind of propped up on the wrists because you're in a kneeling position doing whatever in the garden. You want to be able to have that flexibility in the wrist so you're not overstraining through the wrists when you're putting the weight into your hands in that kneeling position. So a couple of examples, and maybe at the end I can quickly show these if that makes the most sense for you, Bill. I can do kind of a warm up and cool down. But neck rotation, so basically just turning the head side to side within pain-free limits, whatever you're capable of doing. Circles of the wrists, as I mentioned, we spend a lot of time usually on the wrists when we're gardening, so rotating the wrists around. Shoulder and arm circles, so starting with tiny little shoulder shrugs and circles backwards, and then within your pain-free limits of doing bigger circles with the arms, as long as you can tolerate it. Cat-cow is the one, and I can demonstrate these afterwards, where on the hands and knees kind of arching and moving through the back, and then knee to chest. I'll demonstrate all of those in just 1 second. And then cool down. So we develop stiffness, we develop kind of components that flush into the muscle that can lead to increased stiffness over time if we don't do something like stretching afterwards to undo that stiffness. So again, I'll chat about these, but stretching the legs, stretching the chest, stretching the arms, stretching the neck, and stretching the hips. So yes, if you want to flip to me, maybe I can demonstrate some of those warm-ups and cool downs. So I'll try to make myself more visible here. And perfect. So neck rotation, so it would just be turning the head side to side. Within your limitations, that will look different for everybody. Wrist circles up and around within your limits. Shoulders back and around, and then if you can, start doing smaller, and then start making them bigger and bigger and bigger with whatever you're able to tolerate, and you can do that forwards as well. Cat cow, I'll kind of hop onto the ground there. I think this is a good spot there. So arching the back like so, and then arching backwards, and then knee to chest on the back, gently bringing one knee at a time. You might not be able to hear me that far, but hopefully that was demonstrated okay. So those are kind of our warm-ups. And then stretch of the legs. One of the ones we like to do is taking the leg behind us, holding and feeling a stretch through the front of the leg. Of course, that is not doable for everybody. So we can use other things like a chair, holding onto something, and then putting the leg up, or using a strap to pull that leg. What we don't want is knee pain. We want to stretch in the front of the leg. So if you do get knee pain, that would be a modification that I don't have time to get into today, but just make sure that you don't develop knee pain from that. Chest, so opening through the chest, hands behind the back, and opening tall. These stretches should be held for about 30 seconds if you're able to tolerate them. The arms, getting kind of an arm stretch either here, or if you're able to do any other stretches there. The neck, so side to side, 30-second hold there. And then the front of the hip, I know I'm going through this quickly, the front of the hip, so one leg back, engage through the core muscles, engage through the glute muscles, pushing forwards, just avoid any sort of strain in the back. That stretch should be felt in the front of the hip. So for general guidelines of a warm-up cool-down, warm-up should take about 10 to 15 minutes. You can add a small little walk to that to make it a little bit longer, and those stretches should be held for about 30 seconds afterwards. Again, I apologize. I know I'm cramming a lot of information into a short amount of time. That was the biggest, probably the heaviest content in terms of a lot of information in a short amount of time. It'll be a little bit better from here on out if our brains are working overtime. Perfect. You can pop that slide back up there. And we are past, I think we're on the 8th slide there. But yes, I'll chat as that comes up. So as I said, too much, too soon, too often. So gardening enthusiasm is very, very real, and I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm for it. I myself am enthusiastic, but remember that we probably haven't done this for the past couple of months. So when we're not used to it, it is a very, it's a much higher chance of some sort of injury happening. So something funny that I'll share on the slide is it's been a while since the gardens went to bed. Remember that it's been a season of not doing gardening, coming up to a season of wanting to do a whole lot of gardening. And then being aware of being lost in the moment. I get it, it's relaxing. You have a lot of weeds to pull, you have a lot of tomatoes to pick. All of those things are exciting and enjoyable, but staying in a position for more than 15 to 20 minutes can cause more strain. So we want to try to change positions before about that 15-minute period happens. So even just if you're in that 4-point kneeling position, you're weeding, even just getting up, standing up, changing positions, and you can go back to it, but just trying to avoid those long sustained positions as much as we can. And the technique, we'll talk about technique as well, but there is something very much to that. And we can share that whenever we can there, but I'm on the 9th slide there for technique tips. I'll slow down here while that gets up on the screen. I can continue. You're okay there, Bill? Yes. Perfect. I'll keep chatting in the meantime. So techniques. So lifting. I know we've all heard it. Lift with the legs. Oh, sorry, Bill. You're gonna say something there?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Wonderful, excellent. I didn't want to interrupt if you were. So yes, lifting with the legs. So it is very important. So when we do say lifting with the legs there, what we really mean to is not lifting with the back. So I have something here. It's supposed to replicate one of those weeders where you do it standing. It's not exactly that, but use your imagination a little bit here. It's maybe not the right height, but if you're down here trying to get that weed in that bent over position, there's a big difference between, here, let me see if I can get my angle, that position of the back. Do you see how round it's almost like a C curve in my back versus straightening my back like so. So a good test to see how flat the back would be to look in the mirror. Sometimes it requires a mirror to see if you're really lifting with the back or if you're lifting with the legs in that position. This would be a lot of back movement, but then this would be a lot of leg movement, which is what we want. So sometimes that requires maybe a spouse or somebody around to take a look at it to see how we're doing, or use a mirror, whatever works. Just make sure as much as we can to kind of lift with the legs as opposed to the back. It is a cliche for a reason. I know we say it, but it is very true. Yes, is the slide being shared, or the presentation?
No, I'll do that. I'll do that now and
Whatever's easy.
share. Yep.
Perfect, excellent, wonderful. And then, so avoiding any sort of twisting movement. So if we try to keep like our shoulders and our hips square to whatever we're looking at, as opposed to rotating through the back to turn to pick up or dig something kind of beside us, that can kind of put a lot more strain through the back by doing that twist. And also the tools. So we'll chat about the tools here. I am just, what slide are we? I'm on slide 10 there. So helpful tools.
I'm on injury management. Is that?
I think it's one before that. So one backwards.
Helpful tools.
Yep. You got it. So things that we can do to change the environment around us, just to make things a little bit easier, is raised beds, which I know is not an overnight change and an overnight task, but it does make a difference if you're looking to reduce the strain through the back. Kneeling pads, so it's okay to kneel. It's just a little bit more comfortable if you are able to kneel to have that padding. And then long-handled tools, as opposed to things that we really have to bend to try to get to whatever we're trying to get to, some part of the garden. And then wider grips. Smaller grips can put a lot of strain on the wrists and the thumbs. So wider grip tools can be more comfortable if we're having issues kind of in the hands and wrists there. And we can flip to the next slide. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes we do get those injuries. We do get the aches and pains. As best as we try, it does happen, unfortunately. So we want to first just change or modify the activity. So if there's something that you know is the troubling activity or movement, even as much as we want to do it, or we say, yeah, that's just kind of my usual aches and pains, or yeah, it's not so bad. We also have a long gardening season ahead of us. So we really want to kind of capture that before it becomes too much of an issue. So the first step is stop that activity, and then icing for that new injury for 10 to 15 minutes every 2-ish hours. So try not to do beyond the 15 minutes as best as you can, because that's always my rule, is taking it off after 15 minutes. And then waiting that 2 hours. So don't do 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off. That's a rule that I give as well. And continue moving as best as you can. So if that means going for a walk as opposed to sitting on the couch for 12 days, that's kind of something that you can do to continue moving within reason, because we don't want to continue aggravating that injury. And also get help for it. I know that's also the solution that we like to give, but for a very good reason. If there's something that continues to bug you, come see one of us, and we'll help you manage that injury. And you can flip to the next slide. So yeah, so what helps kind of improve your gardening comfort before or after pain arises? So physiotherapy assessment, we still do kind of assessments if you have questions or misunderstandings about how to prevent some sort of injury. We test your strength, we test your balance, we test your mobility if it's warranted, just to see what injuries you might be at risk for and what to do to prevent them, or what to do about them if you've had issues with that in the past. And then tools, of course, as we talked about today, we can always talk about those in assessment. Pacing and planning. So pacing meaning too much, too soon, too often, how much to do, how long to do it, what's appropriate for you given your past injuries and potential current injury. And finding exercises that are specific for you, tools that are specific for you, braces if they're warranted, that might be specific and relevant to you. And I'm doing quite well for time. Usually I always go over. So we can flip to the next slide there. Gardening is amazing, and I, again, have been very passionate about this. I have been very excited to do gardening webinars for a very long time, just because I do love gardening, but I do hear a lot of injuries come from gardening. So thank you very much for everybody involved in this, especially Bill, for everything you've done to help this become as successful as it has been. But it's a wonderful activity and we love doing it. We just want to prevent any potential injuries as much as possible. And we do just need to be mindful of it. We don't think of gardening necessarily as being something that might lead to injuries, but we all know they do happen. Gardening is very challenging in that sense, so we do want to be aware of these things before the gardening season happens. And preparation and planning are key for both our bodies and gardens. As we prepare for our garden, we also want to prepare our body for it. So you can flip on to the next slide. We tend to do a lot of webinars and presentations as well. Laura Lundquist has been a presenter as a physio for a couple of these webinars in the past. So I'm associated with her second clinic called Spring Physio. So if you've heard of Zoomers Physio, it's just a second clinic by Laura. So that's why some of our names are Zoomers and some Spring. We're all kind of under the same umbrella. We're just a sister clinic. But in order to reach out, we are springphysio.ca. And our Facebook is Zoomers Health, and our YouTube channel is Zoomers Physio. If you want more information, we have a ton of information on especially that YouTube channel, just similar to this, in order to help prevent other injuries related to other activities. And that, 6:55, perfect, well done. That is it for me.
Just before you finish, I want to know how I get this little guy to come and plant my potatoes for me, because he's built so close to the ground. He'd be perfect.
That's yeah, that's what we all aspire to be like, right? That's our goal. Well, that one's a tough question for you. We might be here for a while, but hopefully the rest of the questions are easier.
Well, we do have a number of questions, and the first was, you mentioned icing for pain. So what's the difference between heat and ice? Because sometimes we hear people say, put heat on other ice. How do
oh my gosh. Oh, yes, great question. Okay, so with a new injury, that tends to lead to inflammation. The inflammation can lead to a lot of pain and therefore compensations and issues over time, and feelings like the feeling of the injury not resolving. So the ice is meant to reduce that inflammation, get you moving a little bit better. And then I always tell people when they come in, after you kind of go through those couple of days of icing, then we can do a lot more because you're able to move better. That's when we start progressing into more challenging movements and more challenging activities. It's meant to reduce that initial inflammation that comes from a new injury. Heat would be not as relevant to a brand new injury. If I noticed there's kind of a question about like knees in these questions. So sometimes knees can get very stiff without the pain. If you're getting a lot of stiffness and you're feeling like you're not moving as well, but you're not getting that pain side of things, that's when I'd suggest the heat. But I know that is a very well debated question, so I appreciate it. But yes, for injury, there is a reason we only kind of mentioned the ice as opposed to the heat or something like that.
Great. And a related question, what suggestions do you have for gardening positions after 2 total knee replacements?
Oh, that's a tough one because it depends on how new those knee replacements are. So if it's something where you're restricted and you're not able to kneel because you're not getting the mobility, maybe it's a ways away. For a new knee, I wouldn't necessarily say to kneel on that one. So I'll take that to mean maybe it's something where we're not able to kneel and not able to get onto the ground. But something like if you're in this position and your back is flat and we're still able to bend a little bit, we're able to do almost like a deep squat, engage the core, engage the glutes so that you're not using the back too much, and using longer tools as well. Just because I'm assuming, not as comfortable kneeling in this situation. So longer tools with a nice, straight, controlled core can make a big difference if kneeling is an issue there. Great question.
Okay. And do you have back exercises that don't require kneeling?
Back for who? That's a good question. Yes, and I think it kind of depends on what the back is, what the reason is for the back discomfort or back issues. Like even something like a sit to stand can be great because it's really good at strengthening the back, the hips, the core. Just practicing getting up from sitting to standing in that nice good technique can still be good for the back. Now it's challenging without knowing kind of the back issue, what those things might look like. They're not relevant for everybody. Sometimes I'll give somebody like a standing bird dog where you're standing, reaching opposite arm, opposite leg. But again, without knowing that situation, I don't know if I have great generalized advice just because it's not, it's very specific to kind of that injury, unfortunately.
All right. Another question she says, I have osteoporosis. What strategies for safeguarding should I utilize?
Great question. Yeah, so for osteoporosis specifically, that's when it becomes even more important not to round through the back. So just because that rounding through the back can put a lot of strain on the back as opposed to keeping it nice and flat. So with osteoporosis, sometimes it can be more, I'll say risky, maybe that's not the right word, to do pulling of weeds in this position, just because that can put a lot of strain and potential cause of injury through the back. And it's okay if we do that technique perfectly, we'll say, but is it often the case that we will be doing that technique perfectly the entire time that we're gardening? Potentially not. So so tools and positioning and making sure that we're not straining through the back is most important for somebody who has osteoporosis.
And I think we probably answered these, but there are 2 other questions about kneeling. One is a person who had a total knee replacement and has been told they cannot kneel again. And another one saying, do you have suggestions if you are kneeling to how you should do it? So really, I guess 2 separate questions.
Yes. Okay. So, yes. So the raised garden beds and the longer tools, I think, would be relevant in this case, because the issue is if we're not able to kneel, like it's hard to get that full bend in that proper technique if you're going to reach through the ground. That's going to put, like, it's just a challenging position. I don't know if I can do that properly, especially if I were to do that for a prolonged period of time. So I would recommend more raised beds and modifications in terms of tools. Otherwise, it's a hard position to do perfectly for a prolonged period of time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or hiring that little guy we saw on the slide who's built closer to the ground.
There are so many options. I don't know how I didn't consider all of them. This is Bill, you're helping me out here. I appreciate it.
Another question here. Can you please show the best technique for lifting something heavy off the ground?
Good question. Okay, so let me use. All right. This is not as heavy as it looks, but I'm going to pretend this is heavy. It's just a yoga mat that I have here. So, yes. So let's point this down here. Hopefully that is okay. So yes, I would. Two main things that I like to tell people is when you're bending, well, a lot of things, keep the back really flat. So again, it's hard to prevent this from happening. I would even practice it in front of a mirror, just practice that technique alone when you're not gardening, but engage through the glutes, engage through the core, back nice and flat, and then bending through the knees. Now what happens is when we reach forwards to get something, it's common and easy for our back to round forwards up top. So it's easy for that to happen. I often tell people, try to squeeze the shoulder blades together, even though your arms are reaching forwards, so that the back stays flat. If we go and round our shoulder blades forwards, that's when this position happens, and then that's a lot of strain on the back. So back flat, engage core, engage glutes, bending, keeping those shoulder blades together so you're not rounding forwards, shoulder blades together, bend through the hips. Now getting that off the ground, you have to use the glutes even more than you'd think. Otherwise, even though we're doing that perfect position, it's easy to round the back as we lift up. This is a common one. This often happens and contributes to a lot of back pain. So if you can squeeze those glutes right when you pick those up, that will be a huge help in avoiding back discomfort. But it's often hard to do unless it's well practiced, unless somebody's watching you. So be very mindful of that positioning.
Very good. All right. That seems to be all the questions. We've done really well tonight and staying within our time, and that's good for everyone. So, Heather, is there anything you'd like to leave us with before I close this off with my final remarks?
Go and I know I talked about a lot of negative things associated with gardening. Go enjoy it, but be mindful of it. It's a lot easier to fix an injury that never happened as opposed to the other way around. So have fun, enjoy, but be mindful. And the gardening season is long, so we don't want to rush it at the beginning.
Well, thank you very much, Heather MacAulay from Spring Physiotherapy. We really appreciate you doing this. Everybody, we will send you probably sometime early next week after we get it edited, this program. We'll also attach the slides to it so that you can see them separately and clearly. I know that bouncing back and forth between Heather and the slides meant you may have missed some, so we'll send all the slides to you and other information about how you can get in touch with Heather at Spring's Physiotherapy. And welcome, or thank you for everybody for watching, and please keep your eyes out for our next physiotherapy webinar, which will happen in the summer months, and other webinars in between from CARP Nova Scotia. Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.